The final press conference for Gervonta "Tank" Davis and Lamont Roach's highly anticipated battle was intended to be a typical occasion, with the boxers hyping up the contest and throwing out their usual trash talk to sell tickets. However, what happened was far from normal. Tank Davis, known for his aggressive attitude and fiery temperament, completely lost control during the fight with Roach, resulting in pure chaos. What began as a routine promotional event suddenly escalated as Tank's emotions boiled over, and before anybody knew it, security had to rush in to separate the two combatants before things got any worse. The vibe in the room before the news conference was already tense. Roach had been outspoken in the days leading up to the event, declaring that he was not frightened of Tank and that he was about to shock the world. He had commented on Tank's earlier opponents, particularly Frank Martin, claiming that Martin was inexperienced and frightened when they fought, and that Tank's previous triumphs were meaningless. Roach was certain that this fight would be different, noting that he was prepared for a knockout as always, but was particularly determined to knock Tank out if given the opportunity. His comments were obviously intended to ruffle Tank's feathers, and they surely did. Tank was clearly upset when he finally faced Roach after hearing all of the hoopla preceding the fight, including comments that this was an easy matchup and that he was choosing the easy road. The animosity between the two boxers reached new heights during the bout. What began as a normal exchange of words quickly escalated into something more heated. Tank's body language was furious, and it appeared like he was ready to swing at any time. However, Roach did not back down, standing his ground and maintaining eye contact with Tank. The scene was becoming more confrontational, and both men were visibly tense. As the seconds passed, the tension between them became palpable. Then, abruptly, Tank leaped at Roach, causing confusion. Security rushed in, hoping to separate the two fighters before the situation escalated further. This bout between Tank and Roach was more than just another boxing match. It was personal. The two had a long history of fighting as amateurs, with Tank winning each confrontation. Roach had been waiting for years to exact his retribution, confident that he had progressed greatly since their amateur days. He was convinced that this time he would win. Roach recalled their earlier fights, particularly a close encounter in the regionals held in Tank's hometown of Baltimore. Roach believed he had won the bout, but an event involving a point deduction for both competitors muddled the outcome. Despite this, Roach believed he deserved to win. They met again in the Nationals, and Tank emerged victorious in a close bout. Even with Roach's confidence, most people didn't take him seriously. Tank had already shown himself at the highest level of boxing, knocking out exceptional competitors, earning world titles, and becoming one of the sport's most recognizable figures. Meanwhile, Roach was still striving to establish a name for himself. Boxing observers acknowledged Roach's skill, but Tank was on a different level. Calvin Ford, Tank's trainer, praised Roach's talent while emphasizing the obstacles Tank would face. Roach possessed the technical ability to catch opponents off guard with his sly combos, while Tank's might was something else entirely. Tank, according to Ford, possessed the expertise, understanding, and nasty streak required to knock opponents out with a single punch. Many saw the battle as a mismatch. The other main talking topic surrounding this battle was Tank Davis's future. Tank had stated in earlier interviews that he intended to retire after 2025. He was candid about his wish to leave boxing, citing his family and personal well-being as the key reasons for his choice. He added that he wanted to focus on treatment because he believed it would help him become a kinder, more humble person, particularly for the sake of his two daughters. While Tank's plans to retire were known, many believed he should have faced more difficult opponents before hanging up his gloves. Fighters such as Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, and Teofimo Lopez were frequently suggested as potential opponents during Tank's later years in the sport. Instead, Tank faced Roach, a talented fighter who did not have the same name recognition as the previous rivals. Fans and commentators were dissatisfied with Tank's decision to fight Roach because they felt it was too easy. There was also a sense of regret that Tank's retirement appeared to influence his battle decisions. Some people believed Tank was more interested in quick paydays than competing against the best in the division. In contrast, Roach was intensely motivated by this bout, believing it was his last chance at redemption and demonstrating his worth. Roach saw the contempt surrounding his fight with Tank as motivation to work harder and reach new heights. Roach was not the only one who questioned Tank's motivations. Many people questioned if Tank still possessed the fire and determination that had carried him to the top of the sport. Tank recently described boxing as boring, and some were afraid that his enthusiasm for the sport had diminished. Critics asked if Tank had lost his edge, and whether his lack of excitement for boxing would damage his performance in the ring. His remarks about retiring and moving on to new endeavors only fueled this image. Still, Tank was confident in his talents and resolved not to underestimate Roach. Roach, on the other hand, remained as motivated as ever. He was eager to prove that he was the best fighter in the ring, even if no one else thought so. He saw this conflict as the greatest opportunity of his life, and he was determined to make the most of it. He knew he would have a significant test in Tank, but he was confident in his abilities and ready to fight to the best of his ability. Roach's camp was full with hope, believing that Roach's technical abilities would be the key to victory, especially if he could survive Tank's early strength and drag the fight into the later rounds. The most important component was Tank's knockout power. Tank was notorious for his ability to end fights with a single punch, which made him extremely deadly. Even if Roach was technically competent and could outbox Tank, it just took one mistake for Tank to land a knockout punch. Tank's power was a game-changer, and it was one of the primary reasons many people thought Roach had no chance. However, the possibility of Roach pulling off an upset was not entirely out of the question. If Roach could endure Tank's early onslaught, irritate him with his technique, and make it to the latter rounds, he had a chance to produce an upset. However, most people still considered Tank as the clear favorite, and they expected him to win decisively. Another prospective battle that sparked public interest was a matchup between Tank and Keyshawn Davis, a rising boxing talent who had been calling Tank out for years. Keyshawn Davis was widely regarded as one of the sport's most promising prospects, and his name was frequently mentioned when debating boxing's future. Davis was quick, skillful, and smart in the ring, and his movement style and combinations made him a tough opponent. He was also unbeaten, quickly rising through the ranks and establishing himself in the sport. Tank and Davis had a history of back-and-forth trash talk, and many fans thought a bout between them would be far more intriguing than Tank's current showdown against Roach. Keyshawn Davis had the ability and confidence to make a battle with Tank extremely engaging. He was recognized for his quick combinations, agility, and ring IQ. Davis was already being heralded as a future world champion, and the possibility of a match between him and Tank sparked excitement among boxing enthusiasts. However, the fight between Tank and Roach was not as exciting. It was viewed as a mismatch, with many expecting Tank would easily overcome Roach. However, there was an element of unpredictability with Keyshawn Davis, as Davis possessed the tools to put Tank to the test in ways that Roach may not. The fact that Keyshawn Davis had worked with Floyd Mayweather further fueled the fire. Tank's friendship with Mayweather had deteriorated, and Mayweather was now helping competitors like Davis who wanted to defeat Tank. This provided another level of drama to the possible conflict. Davis had made it obvious that he wanted to face Tank, and if that fight took place, it would be more than simply a boxing contest. It would be a battle of egos and an opportunity for Davis to prove that he could be the sport's next big thing. In the end, Tank's bout with Roach was overshadowed by the prospect of a more interesting matchup with Keyshawn Davis. Fans were already discussing the sport's future, and the prospect of Tank versus Davis sparked widespread interest. But for the time being, Tank was focused on his forthcoming battle with Roach, even though most people considered it as an easy payday for the incumbent champion. Roach was determined to make this fight his defining moment, but Tank's strength, talent, and experience made him the overwhelming favorite to win. Only time would tell whether Roach could shock the world or Tank would continue to dominate his way to triumph.